Okay, great. Oh, folks, thanks very much for joining us this evening for our overview of Google Classroom for TDSB families. Over the next 30 minutes or so, we'll be doing a bit of an introduction of Google Classroom with some key features. We'll talk a little bit about how to access Google Classroom, how to log in, and we'll also be taking questions in the chat pod as we go along. And two of my colleagues, Mahfouza Rahman and Zelia Capiteo Tavares, are here to help this evening. Mahfouza is a secondary teacher in the TDSB, and Zelia is an elementary teacher in TDSB, both of whom are very experienced Google Classroom users. So we're in good hands when it comes to the questions this evening. So without further ado, I think we'll get going. And sorry, I have a very bad habit of not introducing myself when we do these sessions. So Kevin Bradbeer from IT Services, and really happy to spend some time with you this evening. Okay, so as we mentioned, we're going to look at how to access Google Classroom. We're going to look at how to log into Google Classroom and the information you'll need to do that. And then we'll spend some time looking at some of the key areas of Classroom, specifically the stream and the classwork sections. We'll talk a little bit about the people and the marks sections, but most of the time spent on the stream and classwork. And then at the end, we'll talk about the available help that is here from TDSB and Google for Google Classroom for parents and students and guardians and families. So first of all, we wanted to talk a little bit about what Google Classroom is. And Classroom is a tool that is provided to school districts around the world as part of G Suite for Education. So TDSB is a G Suite for Education customer, and that means that we have a legal contract in place with Google for the use of G Suite for Education services. And this contract covers things like support, privacy, security, data ownership. And it's important, I think, to note that although the tools look similar, like Gmail and Calendar and Drive, to a regular Google account that you or I might have, at gmail.com. The way the services are administered by the district, the access that Google doesn't have to our data that they may have to, say, your regular Gmail account, they're very, very different. And I think it's important. People sometimes have questions about, what does Google have access to within our environment, and what can they do, and do they take our content and sell it? And the answer to all of those is no. TDSB owns our data that goes into G Suite for Education, and Google is actually technically not allowed to access that content, or unless we ask them to, unless we need support with something. So in terms of who in TDSB has access to Classroom, all of our students from kindergarten to grade 12 and all of our school-based staff have access to Google Classroom. So any teacher in TDSB can start a Google Classroom and invite students from their class, their school, other staff members from their school to be a part of that classroom. And in fact, we have some Google Classrooms that are, they take place across the district. For example, our French department that works as part of our curricular area, they have a Google Classroom that is open to teachers across the district. And lastly, just wanted to mention that Classroom is one of the 2 online classrooms provided and supported by the district. Brightspace is the other one, and we've talked about that a couple times this week already. And what that means is that the district provides a series of digital learning tools to our staff and students, and we're fairly insistent on the use of those particular tools for our teachers and our students, from a privacy, from a security, from a data perspective, but also from a support perspective. So all of the tools that the district provides have support contracts in place. We have data privacy agreements in place, and these tools have undergone security assessments to make sure that the way they log students in, the way they store their data, back up their data, is in line with the standards that we would have if we were doing this ourselves. And sorry, I will apologize if you hear dogs barking in the background. We have 2 dogs right now, 7-month-old puppies, and there's a lot of people that walk by the house this time of night, so there's a lot going on in their world. So in terms of G Suite for Education, we talked about Classroom being one of those tools, and this is a slide that illustrates some of the other tools in that suite. So some of them are similar to what a regular Gmail user might have, such as Drive and Docs and Sheets. But some of them are unique. So Forms, for example, Classroom, Jamboard, These are tools that are unique to the G Suite for Education environment. And you'll see a note over on the Gmail and the Google Sites tabs that those tools are only made available to students of a certain age within our district. And so, for example, Gmail and Google Sites are turned on for students beginning in grade 4, whereas all the other tools in the district are available from kindergarten to grade 12. So really quickly, I'll just highlight. So Google Drive is an online storage mechanism, and that provides unlimited storage to students while they're part of TDSB. Google Docs is like a word processing environment that's very similar to Microsoft Word. Sheets is similar to Excel. It's a spreadsheet type functionality. Google Forms is a survey creating tool, which is very, very popular within the district. Draw is essentially a drawing program that allows you to either import images or draw your own sort of pictures, if you will, label them, import other things. Quite a powerful tool. Google Meet, we've been using a lot since remote learning began. It's a web conferencing tool. Calendar, straightforward. Google Slides is like a PowerPoint presentation type of tool. Gmail, I'm sure you're familiar with. And Sites is a website creation tool that allows people within the district to create websites under a TDSB domain. So Classroom, I'm going to talk a lot more about. And Jamboard is a relatively new app from Google for G Suite. And it's essentially a virtual whiteboard. It allows the use of sticky notes and teachers to use a sort of free-flowing drawing tool to help with things like math equations or science equations, things like that. So it's one of the new collaborative tools within the space. Okay, so as you look at accessing Google Classroom, you're going to need a few pieces of information from your child or your children. So the first is their Google account ID, and this looks like an email address. So it would be their first name dot last name at student.tdsb.on.ca. The second piece of information would be your child's 9-digit Trillium number. And as we've highlighted on the slide here, this is not the Ontario education number from the report card, but rather a number that TDSB provides out to our students. And generally our students in grade 3 and up would know this number fairly well. It's the number they use to log on to a Windows computer at school, the number they would use to log into the Wi-Fi network at school, and it's also the number that's on their library card at school. And if your child doesn't know their 9-digit Trillium number, you can ask your child's teacher. They have access to that information. Third piece of information that you'll need is your child's password, and students in TDSB only have one password that logs them into all of our digital tools. So they only have to remember one. And then if you are accessing your child's Google Classroom for the first time, you may need a code. Teachers can sign up their students in a couple of ways. They can add them directly, or they can provide them with a code that students enter when they log in for the first time. And we'll show an example of that in a little bit. At the very bottom of the screen, we just wanted to note that we do have some web chats set up on our public website during remote learning to help parents and students with any password issues that they might be having. So some students might have forgotten their password or having trouble with their account of some kind. So that web chat is available between the hours of 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday to Friday, and it's accessed off of the TDSB public site that you see in the link there. Okay, so logging into Classroom, anywhere in the world you have an internet connection, whether you're on a mobile device or a laptop or desktop computer, you can access our academic workspace login portal. And the URL is in the screen there in blue, so aw.tdsb.on.ca. And again, you can literally be anywhere in the world with an internet connection and access this login portal. So the first piece of information you're going to need is that 9-digit Trillium student number that we would enter in the username field. And that almost always starts with a 3 for TDSB students. Second field is, of course, their password. And then we're going to click on Login, and that will log in or authenticate the students into Academic Workspace, where they will then have options for a variety of services to choose from. So once logged into Academic Workspace, the main page you land on is going to look like this. And there are a few different tools that are provided to staff and students from this login portal. For our purposes today, we want to focus on the Google Apps tab. That's right on the front. Hover over it. You don't need to click on it. Just hover, and the Google Apps menu will drop down, and you can select Classroom from there. And of course, if you wish to log into any of the other Google tools, that's another way to do that as well. So if you have been in a Google Classroom previously, if your children have already logged into their Google Classroom, once they select it from the menu within AW, they will land in their dashboard inside Classroom, and they will see something that looks like this. So they may have one classroom that they're a part of, they may have several that they're a part of, and each one of them will be represented as sort of a unique tile on the screen that you see. And there's just a sample that we've put into the slide here today. And you can see the one that we'll be using for demos today is our Cyber Tech School with Mafuza as our teacher. If it's the first time you're coming into Classroom and you log in and you don't see any of those tiles on your main dashboard landing page, you'll need to join a class. So over in the far right-hand side, top corner, you'll see a plus sign. And if you click on that, students will only see the option to join a class. Teachers will see the ability to join a class or create a class. So we would want to click on join a class. And the teacher would have provided you in that instance with a joining code or a class code. And it would be a code of about 6 to 8 characters, letters and numbers. And some of the numbers can be both lowercase and uppercase, and they are case sensitive. So you need to add that in accordingly. So enter that class code and click join, and then that will take you back to that dashboard, and you can then enter into the classroom of that particular teacher. So as we mentioned before, there are 3 main areas that are going to be evident to every particular Google Classroom. There is a 4th one that is the marks area, and teachers do have the option of using the marks area or not. So some of your Google Classrooms may have that visible and some may not. And that's the reason why you might not see it, is because the teacher may choose not to record their marks in that place. So the stream is the first area that you land on. It's kind of like your landing page within there. We'll talk a little bit more about that, along with classwork. And then the people tab, we won't spend a lot of time on this evening, but the people tab or section is really just a listing of all the people who are in that particular Google Classroom. Students and teachers can use that tab to contact each other. So there is an opportunity or a functionality that allows you to email each other, the people who are members of that class. Okay, so what kinds of things will we see on the stream? So basically, this is an information sharing function within Classroom, and it allows the teacher to share information out to the students through a variety of posts. So I can have an information kind of announcement, sort of similar to where the teacher might be in front of their students at the beginning of the day or the beginning of the class, providing an update, an overview of what they're going to do that day, that sort of thing. You can provide resources by way of perhaps a document or an attachment or a link to something in Google Drive. You can bring in, of course, YouTube videos, and then, of course, links to other articles, could be within Google Classroom, or they could be on our virtual library or any other sort of internet link that we have there. And sorry, I'm just noticing in the chat, Glenda had a question about the Brightspace seminar. So Glenda, we did 2 of them actually, and there's a link to them on the remote learning page on the TDSB public site. And I think we'll have a chance to go there at the end. So we'll try to show that to you. So that's what the stream looks like. And you'll notice that in the first stream announcement that we have here, you'll see that add class comment option. And when a teacher creates a post in the stream, they have the option to either enable comments or disable comments. And we'll have a look more in depth at comments as we go on. So the next screen we're going to look at is the students' individual listing of assignments that is available to them. And you'll notice that there's a little red line under View All. So this next screen that we visit is going to be an example of that. So I've clicked on View All. And now as a student, I'm presented with this list of assignments that my teachers made available to me. So we notice that we see the title of the assignment, we see the due date, if there is one, and then we also see sort of the status of the assignment. So if the status is assigned, that means that that assignment is currently open and the student is able to submit. If it's missing, that means that the due date for that particular assignment has passed. And as a student, I may or may not be able to still turn that particular assignment in or not. And you'll notice that some of the assignments have due dates and some of them don't, and that's a teacher option when they post assignments. So sometimes they want something handed back in, and other times it might be just something that they're giving the students for information or for reference. Okay. So when we bump over to the classwork page, this is the entire class's view of all the different assignments that are available to them. And over the course of the year or the semester, this page has a lot of content posted to it. So one of the ways to organize and access that content more easily and more quickly is through the use of topics. So topics is a way of organizing the various assignments and making it easier for students to find them, teachers as well. So you'll notice on the left-hand side that we have a variety of topics: art, spelling, morning message, language, math, etc. And I can click on one of those topics to access the assignments for that particular area. But we'll notice on the main page that everything is listed in chronological order. So most recent at the top, and then going on down towards those that are a little bit older. So this next view is how the student can use the idea of the topics to narrow down, drill down into the assignments that they actually want to look at and then possibly submit something to. So the first thing that we would do as a student is I would click on, for example, the writing topic, which would give me a more specific list of the assignments that have been made available to me underneath that writing topic or section. And in this example, we have 3: descriptive writing for team 1, descriptive writing for team 2, and then another descriptive writing for team 1. By clicking on the first one, descriptive writing team 1, we now pop over to the second icon that we have in there, second screen capture, where it now shows me the details of that assignment. So this particular assignment has 2 resources that have been attached to it. The first one is a short writing task template, and the second one is a little YouTube video on how to write a descriptive paragraph. So the first one would be something that I would use as a student to help me actually accomplish the assignment. The teacher might have given me some instructions. They might have given me some details that I need to pay attention to and follow. And then the second piece is just a resource for me to help me learn and understand and shape some of the work I'm going to do. So once the student has clicked on that individual assignment, they can then, you'll notice in the top sort of right corner, there is an area to add or create a piece of content. So this is where the students would basically start their assignment. And I wanted to draw your attention to the comments. So in the lower screen capture, bottom right corner of the screen, there's a class comment section, and then there's also a private comment section. So if a student puts a question in the class comments area, everyone in the class will see that particular question. The private comment area underneath your work, those comments are just between the teacher and the student. So that would be an opportunity for the student to ask a clarifying question about the assignment or the due date or anything that the student wishes. And then that conversation just takes place between the teacher and the student. Okay, so we have a couple of examples here of how the classwork would be used for elementary, and then a couple more for secondary. So we notice that the icon of the classwork area changes depending on the kind of activity that the teacher selects. So in the top example, we have a little clipboard icon, and that would indicate that this is an assignment that the teacher has asked for it to be handed in. And we notice that in the top right-hand corner, we see a your work. We see that the student in this case has actually attached a Google Slide document, and that is what they are going to turn in or hand in or submit to the teacher. And then when the turn in button is active like that, like a bold color, that means that the assignment has not been submitted yet by the student. Once it is submitted, the button will change color and the text will change to resubmit. So that's the way that the student knows if the assignment has been submitted or not, or in this case, if the parents will know if the assignment's been submitted or not, whether that button says turn in or whether it says resubmit. The second one, the second screen capture we have, the bottom one, this particular assignment is a discussion. So we notice that the icon is different now. It's a question mark. And what this is the teacher has posted a short little Google slide clip and has asked the students to respond to the question right underneath the particular morning message resource that they posted up there. So the students wouldn't necessarily be submitting anything, and you notice that the turn in button is grayed out. So the students can't actually hand in any particular file or document for this assignment. They need to answer what their thoughts are in the class comment section underneath. So two different kinds of assignments, just to show you the difference between those. And then moving over to secondary, we see the similar kind of assignment with the clipboard icon. This particular student, in this case, Joanne, has selected a Google Slides file, and she's going to turn that in as her assignment. And we notice that Joanne's actually running a little bit behind because her work is labeled as missing. So that means that she may have missed the initial deadline that the teacher had set for this particular assignment. In the classwork area as well, teachers can also post resources. So if this isn't an assignment that is required to be turned in, there isn't anything that needs to be answered or responded to. And this might be the way that a teacher would share perhaps a rubric or a list of instructions or a resource, or perhaps some instructions about how to cite your sources that you've been researching, that sort of thing. And you can see that in this particular case, Mafusa has enabled comments for this particular resource, and she could have also chosen to not do that and have comments disabled. So that particular resource icon is the piece of paper with the little bookmark icon attached to it. Okay, and this one is again that same sort of material or resource sort of assignment. And we've used this particular screenshot to show what the class comments looks like with perhaps a little more clarity. And then on the next screen, we've got some of those comments actually in live form here. So we can see that there was a resource posted, a piece of material, and comments were enabled, and that there have been 3 or 4 comments posted back and forth. And you'll notice that both the student and the teacher have the ability to hit the plus button on the keyboard and tag people. So in this case, Mafusa has tagged Janice and said, hey, you can get a copy of that resource you're looking for right here. Similarly, the students could tag their teacher and say, hi, I'm looking for information on this, or, could you help me with that, or, whatever the question might be. So comments can be used in a few different ways within the classwork and the stream areas. Okay, so wanted to talk a little bit about what kinds of files can be used to submit work within Google Classroom. And, not surprisingly, Google Classroom integrates really well with Google Drive. So the student can submit any kind of file that they have in their personal Google Drive, whether that's a document, a slide, a sheet, a drawing, but they could also submit other kinds of things. So they might have a PDF within their Google Drive that they've stored. They might have an image file. They might have a movie file, or they may upload something from a local computer and use that as an assignment submission as well. And that's all done through the Your Work area, hitting the plus, add or create document, and then proceeding through there. So one question that's come up quite a bit during remote learning is that the students may have done something on paper. They may have answered some questions on a piece of paper, or they might want to submit a photo of something as their assignment, as their answer. So one of the ways to do that if you're working on a laptop with, say, a built-in webcam is on this previous screen, I would choose Google Doc as my work, your work. I'd hit the plus sign. I'd go to create new Google Doc. And then this is the screen I would see when I go insert. I'd want to click on image. And then I'm going to go down until I see camera. This will then activate the webcam of the device you're on, whether it's laptop, tablet, etc. And then I can either hold up the piece of paper, or in this case, there's a teddy bear that we wanted to use for our artifact, or I could turn the laptop and take a picture of something sitting on a flat surface. So just wanted to highlight that it is possible to take a picture of sort of a tactile object and submit that as your assignment, your work for a particular activity. Okay, so we spent a little bit of time talking about using Google Classroom on a laptop or a desktop through a web browser. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about what Google Classroom looks like on a mobile device. So there are both Android and iOS apps for Google Classroom, and they can be accessed from either of those stores. And interestingly, you may have heard this in the news that when remote learning first started about 5 or 6 weeks ago, students from around the world went into the app stores and started to give it a very low rating because I forget if it's Google or Android, but they have a policy that if an app gets a 1-star rating, it gets removed. So students around the world sort of had a collective effort to try to get it to get the Classroom app removed, but it didn't work. They're both still there. So you could choose your operating system of choice. And this first one is an example on iOS. We'll have an Android one in a second. So I would install the app, open it up. It's going to ask me to get started, and it's going to send me to the academic workspace login screen, which we've already talked about how we would enter those credentials before. So again, that's the TDSB student number, the regular password. I'll click login. And then because Classroom is only available to G Suite for Education customers, it's going to say, oh, okay, I need you to sign in with your TDSB Google account ID, which again looks like the first name dot last name at tdsb.on.ca. And then it would take me into the Classroom view. The Android steps are a little bit different. So again, same first screen, install the app, launch it, click Get Started. Then it's going to say choose an account for Classroom, because for those Android users out there, your account is basically attached to your device. And if it's a regular, say, Gmail account that's attached to the phone, Classroom's going to know that that account can't be used to access Google Classroom. I need an education account, so it's going to prompt you to add. And at that point, that's where the student would enter in their TDSB email. And then it's the reverse of the iOS one. It's going to take me to the Google account first, then the academic workspace login second. Once we get logged into the app on either platform, this is what the first screens are going to look like. If I had Classrooms on my immediate landing page, they would be displayed as stacked tiles, sort of like you see on the far right-hand side. If I didn't have any Classrooms yet, click the plus sign in the top right corner, and then the class code little dialog box is going to open up. I can type that in there and click join, and then I'll see my class, and the example here we have is virtual school. So the format of the screens is a little bit different in the mobile app versus the web version. And one of the big ways it's different is that you'll notice that the stream, classwork, and people areas are now at the bottom of the screen as opposed to the top. The top of the screen on the left-hand side, we have our settings menu. The top right side of the screen, we have our sort of information or help menu. So if I have, from this main screen, if I click on the classwork tab, it's going to take me to a screen that looks like this. And again, this is very familiar. I see all the topics there, but I'm not seeing the topics displayed to me automatically. I've got to click on a couple of extra options to be able to have those topics presented to me. So the first thing a student can do to get that individual list of assignments is to click on the little small, looks like a picture frame icon in the top right corner. That will give you the list of the student assignments that are unique to that particular student. You'll get the date, you'll get the title of the assignment, and then you'll get the due date of the assignment. If I wanted to get to that list of topics, I need to click on that little descending settings menu. So the 3 lines getting smaller as they go down. Clicking on that will take me to the list of art, sorting, morning message, spelling, etc. That we would have had access to on the web version. We just would have gotten there a little bit differently. And then in terms of what the content looks like in a mobile version, it's pretty similar to the web. There's not a lot of changes here. We see that the icons look a little bit different. Comments are still available. Again, just some of the icons look a little bit different. And then this is just another example from secondary. When we are submitting assignments, though, you'll notice that the turn in button, we don't see that on the first one. We do see it in the second one. It's embedded sort of at the bottom of the assignment as opposed to sort of on that right-hand side when we look at the web version. So in terms of submitting, and you certainly can submit documents from a mobile device. So if you're out somewhere, or if you don't have access to the laptop or the desktop within the home and you need to submit something, you can certainly do so from a mobile device, and you can access all of your Google Drive content from a mobile phone. So in this case, we're on a mobile device and I need to turn in something. So I'm going to hit the turn in button. And then the next prompt that's going to be given to me is to say, okay, what would you like to do? Would you like to create a new document or a new slide or a new sheet? Or would you like to grab something from your drive that you have now? So those options that are appearing on the right-hand side. One of the really interesting things that you can do from a mobile device, which I think is a little more intuitive than the web, is getting access to the camera roll from that mobile device that you're using. So you'll see here that it says use camera or pick photo, and I can do that, and then I can submit one of the files or photos I have on my mobile device to use as my assignment submission. So class comments are also available. The main difference with mobile is that they don't appear automatically when they're attached to an assignment or a stream post, etc. You have to actually click on the class comment icon in order to get those comments to pop up. Okay, so folks, we're at the end of the overview of the specific Google Classroom features. And so I'm just going to take a pause in the chat and just see, it looks like we've been answering all the questions as we go along. Thank you so much to Zelia, Mafuza, and Joanne. In terms of help options for families, we've got a few things available to you. Google has put out a Guardian Classroom Guide, and Google refers to parents and families as guardians globally. So that's there. Parents and students can certainly ask their teacher for assistance. So if there was a question, of course, about the assignment or the resource or that sort of thing, that would definitely go to the teacher. But if the student wasn't able to log in, for example, or if they were having trouble using one of the tools, the teacher could then contact TDSB's help desk to gain some assistance with a particular item or question that might be facing the student or the family. And we do have the remote learning family support site, which I have a screen capture of in a second. And then lastly, if you weren't able to find answers to any of your questions and those other resources, my email address is there. If you need some assistance, I'd be happy to try to help you. So in terms of the remote learning site that TDSB has on their main page, and you see the URL at the very bottom, these are some of the resources that have been posted up to help families during remote learning. So the first one is a guide that our help desk created to help families log in to Google Classroom. So accessing Google Classroom Guide for Parents. The second one is a Google Digital Citizenship Guide, which is just a document that Google put out a little while ago called Be Internet Awesome. And the third one is the Guardian Guide that I mentioned on the previous slide, the Google for Education Guardian Guide. The fourth one you see in the second row is another guide that our help desk created in terms of logging into Brightspace, so accessing Brightspace Guide for Parents. And then the last tile there, the student password and device help. That's a link to the web chat that I mentioned at the beginning of the session this evening. So if you have questions about your child's account, their login, their password, their email address, you can use that web chat to get some help with that during the hours of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday. And if you received a device from TDSB for assistance with remote learning, and you have a question about maybe connecting to the Wi-Fi or anything about the device itself, you can use that same tile to initiate a web chat and answer questions about that. Okay. That's great. So folks, thanks very much for joining us this evening. We'll just pause for maybe one more moment and see if there's any questions in the chat pod. But I appreciate you joining us. And this recording will be available on the TDSB's remote learning site. So please feel free to visit that. And we appreciate you spending some time with us this evening. Thanks very much. So Mandy, there is a feature within Google Classroom called Guardian Email Summary. And what that does is gives a sort of a daily or a weekly summary of some of the assignments and announcements that have been posted in the classroom. It's a teacher choice whether they enable that feature or not. So if you don't see that from what your children are doing now, you could certainly ask your teacher that. And Steve, I think that the email summary gives you fixed things, like the teacher can't pick and choose. Google's kind of said there'll be assignments, there'll be announcement kind of posts that are shared, but nothing specific, nothing sort of sensitive. It's just sort of general information that's been posted to the class. Boltsy 414, you can toggle back and forth between Google Classrooms for, say, two students, two children using the same device. Please feel free to reach out to our help desk through that web chat if you need any assistance with that. The last question there about username and password for parents. So parents don't log into Google Classroom specifically, it's only the students. So the students use theirs, and then you may want to ask the teacher about the parent guardian email summary if that's something that's being used. Yeah, Boltsy, you should be able to toggle back and forth between accounts pretty easily on a mobile device. It's a little bit harder on Android than it is on iOS, but certainly possible. I do it on my Android phone often. But again, please don't hesitate to reach out to our help desk. They'll be able to assist you with that. Okay, thanks everyone. We're going to bring an end to the session. I appreciate you spending time with us this evening. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Take care.